Welcome to the Future Generations Podcast, providing you with the world-changing content necessary to inspire you, your family, and our planet to a life of optimal health potential. We'll help you make the choices that powerfully influence the lives you bring into this world. It's time to strengthen our resolve to do better now and for our future generations with your host, Dr. Stanton Hom.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the Future Generations Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stanton Hom, and this is a small pipe dream of mine. Dr. Donahoe is somebody, if you're from Southern California, if you've been in anywhere in this kind of space for health and medical freedom, if you've ever understood, like in chiropractic, the hierarchy of how things kind of go clinically, then you know Dr. Donahoe's tenure is something that should be emulated by a whole generation of chiropractors. And I got to meet you face to face for the first time a couple years ago in Murrieta at a Freedom Keepers event, and it was one of those moments for me, man, that I really appreciated, because a lot of people talk about this young generation of chiropractors doing a really good job, but it's definitely in the wake of many of the leaders like you, and I'm appreciative of your service to our community. I know my family has benefited from the work that you've done and the sacrifice that you've had and the leadership you provided. So that's my quick intro. I would love our audience to get to know you both personally and professionally, Dr. Donahoe, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you, Doc. I appreciate those kind words. Yeah, this is 26 years in practice. It makes it. I graduated in 97. I finished my diplomate in pediatrics in 2001. And ever since then, it's been a dedicated career towards pediatric and prenatal care. It's been an awesome ride. It's been, hundreds of thousands of lives you get to touch. I've been serving the same community here of Murrieta since 1999. And this has been our home, and we're so happy and comfortable here. And Murrieta is really a much larger community that includes Temecula, Lake Elsinore, Menifee, and some other surrounding communities. It's just been so rewarding when you establish and set up a home base, and then just serve this community for as long as I have. You can't help but become integrated into that community, and that's the most incredible part of what we've accomplished here, is that we are a big part of this community, the birthing community, the educational support community that goes along with that, midwives, doulas, birth educators, and then of course the kids care, pediatricians, pediatrics that we do. It's so cool. I have a passion for what I do, as I know you do, and getting to serve this community to this degree is just really just the fruition of my life's goals and the life's work that I've been working towards. So I'm just so happy to be here today and serving the community the way that I am, and doing what we're doing today, which is sharing this really important message. So let's do that.
I can't wait to get into this this conversation. I saw your video, I saw it go viral, and I saw just the potential, right? Because we have, many people could say, if you've been in the fight for California for long enough, it's like a tsunami wave, man. They're just, you mentioned the multiple regions that you serve in, right? Whether it's birth, whether it's kids, whether it's education, whether it's this whole kind of legal front, it's recognizing that the tsunami wave of whatever you want to call it, tyranny, medical tyranny, whatever it is so multifactorial. They have multiple fronts on which they're actually, doing what they could, doing their very best to take every generation beyond our kids, and essentially shackle them to the system. That I was talking to an OB last night, and I want to give people a little bit of perspective, because he came to our anniversary party. He is a relative of one of the more vocal lawyers in the movement, and he was just like, so what do you guys do? It was the first maybe conversation this guy who practiced for like 40 or 50 years ever had with like a prenatal pediatric chiropractor. And it was a moment where he was just like what? Like, that's crazy. All I see, because he's like, yeah, all we heard was this. And he really looks at it from the medical freedom, informed consent vaccine perspective. Talked a little bit about never in his career vaccines and pregnancy. Why are they all of a sudden doing it so, just blindly and so reflexively? It's just, quote, standard of care now. And he comes from the old school where he's like, yeah, we just never did that before. And then all of a sudden it became standard of care. And then it was a moment where I was like, oh, there's too many bridges to cross. But I wanted to just share with him, like, we're not like obese. Like, we do prenatal chiropractic care, but we see families throughout their whole journey, especially after they have baby and they bring baby into our practice. And we see those, like, you probably have amazing stories, because I have kids in my practice that are 11, 12, 13 that are part of my very first year of practice, and you are an embedded part of their journey of life, and you have done it for a decade and a half, and you start to see the different ways that chiropractors like us, who are very different from many of the, quote, influencers that are out there, that are kind of behind screens, that don't really have a brick and mortar, that aren't immersed in a real human to human contact that is essentially the whole point of life itself. And so I want people to recognize that when Dr. Donahoe talks about 26 years of service in his community, one community, right?
Yeah. Well, 24 here in Murrieta.
And your kids are how old?
My oldest is 30, and then we've got 26 coming up right around the corner for my daughter, 23 for my boy, and my youngest is 18. So I've raised four kids. Yeah, just went off to college, Cal State Long Beach, and my wife and I are technically empty nesters, although I just left a house full of kids and family right now for a Saturday morning brunch. They never stop coming home, which is wonderful,
So I got to ask you one quick question first. Do you have people in your practice now that have been with you from the beginning?
Yeah, gosh, as you just mentioned, you're seeing kids that you've treated grow up, and I've been blessed to do the same thing. I'm working with children of children that I started working.
That's what I was going to ask next. Yeah.
And that's an amazing thing when you took an infant and cared for them all of their lives, and now they're 20 years old and they're beginning their own families, and I'm seeing those kids, and that's, yeah, boy, you look in the mirror and go, wow, I've been doing this for a little while now, but it's an incredible feeling. And I'll tell you that the best part of all of it is that, as you said, you make an impression, you imprint on these kids' lives. And what's so satisfying for me is I've got to see now hundreds of times firsthand is that these chiro babies, as I call them, they grow up in chiropractic, and when they're 6, they're 7, they're 9 years old, even when they're 4, doc, it's unbelievable. I need to go see my chiropractor. Well, what's wrong? My knee hurts, my back hurts. I need to go see my chiropractor. And you got kids that are asking their parents, I need to go see my doctor. Oh, you're fine. You're young. You'll be fine. No, 2 days later, 3 days later, guys, I need to go see my doc. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they walk in the room, and again, they could be as young as 4, but certainly older than that. They communicate really well. They're like, it's right here. It's right here. It's my knee, doc. It's the right side. And they know the solution is not open the medicine cabinet and take out that bottle of pills. And that is the greatest thing that I could ever accomplish in life, is teaching children that when their body is in a state of dysfunction, that the solution does not lie in that pharmaceutical medicine cabinet. It's an adjustment that's going to change how their body feels and functions. And then we're going to support their physiology if we need to, using nutritional supplements, herbal formulas, homeopathic remedies, all that good stuff. But it's these kids who've been raised since day one that they know like they know their name when they need an adjustment. And that is the best thing in the world.
I got goosebumps. And if you're
it does that, doesn't it? I know.
If you're a chiropractor listening, there's one direction we want to go, is all the different miracle stories that you've been able to witness on your tables, under your hands. And maybe we'll get there, but there's a huge subject that I believe we have to put front and center. SB 277, I remember that was my 5th year practice. And I remember that was my first real trip to the Capitol. And I remember just the monstrosity of activism, mothers and baby carriers, grandmothers, a whole host of diversity in terms of who was actually showing up at the Capitol. It was like thousands to one ratio of those who were fighting this unlawful and tyrannical bill. And yet it just gets complete, like all the different things that happen in the committees, stripping essentially our personal belief and religious exemptions, going against the Constitution. But you have something in store. You have a mission that I saw your video, I saw it go viral. I reached out to you because I just wanted to give you as much of a platform as possible, because I believe California is, and you're an exemplification of that, is just going to be a model for how we tackle a lot of these tyrannical measures. But I'd love for you to share.
Well, my wife and I have been involved in this since 2015. Even before then, I've been educating families on healthy choices in life, and vaccines are one of those choices, and families need to be informed. And sadly, nobody has ever really informed families nor patients about vaccines, vaccine safety, vaccine effectiveness. At any rate, it was always my job to educate. And when we saw California moving in a direction where we were facing losing our philosophical exemption as well as our religious exemption, and leaving nothing on the table but medical exemptions, we knew that that was going to be a big problem. And so we got involved early on. I did not go to the Capitol as you did yourself. We debated whether we would or would not. Eventually, we landed on the side of, we're going to stay here at home, we're going to organize events, and we're going to start bringing in people to raise awareness. So we did that instead of traveling up north, but we held many events. We had the Murrieta Community Center filled with people. We were, at the time, pushing to recall Senator Jeff Stone, who was a co-author of the original bill. He was our local representative, and boy, people were not happy with the fact that he was participating in that here locally. And so we've been a part of this for, a really long time. It's a fight that we just cannot let go, because, as you've already stated, not only is it unethical, immoral, but it is truly unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. You can't take away a philosophical exemption. Sadly, what you feel and believe no longer matters to the state of California. So the only thing that we've got left is this religious exemption. And when you tell any formal religious organization or what do you want to call it, a belief system, that they have to comply with something that goes outside of their morals, we've crossed the line, and it's unconstitutional. It goes against the freedom of practicing of your own religion, and so we've got to rely on that approach now. It's just been such a long and difficult road, this journey. You know, not only did 2015 and SB 277 happen, but then SB 276 came and further refined it. Between 2015 and 2019, it became about, well, let's educate families what they need to understand about how they are eligible and how to get a medical exemption. And we had many families taking advantage of that. I had local pediatricians that were supporting our families in their choice and in their need. These are documented medical needs. We had genetic testing done for a number of patients that showed that there are compromises in how their body can respond to a vaccine or detoxify after a vaccine. And these are justifiable reasons to avoid them. And I had many pediatricians on board supporting and writing exemptions for these families. And then SB 276, and they're like, nope, we're going to yank the rug out from under you. We're getting too many medical exemptions. And so now you can't even get a medical exemption. And these poor MDs or DOs, the docs that I've been working with closely side by side for decades with, they've had their ability to doctor their patients taken away. And the state of California is now the pediatrician, and the doctors no longer have a voice in what the best course of action is for their individual patients. They're limited to writing 5 medical exemptions annually, whether they treat 5 patients annually or 50,000 patients annually. And that's completely absurd to arbitrarily put a number on it like that. But the state medical board is now looking over the doctor's shoulders or knocking on their door if they write those exemptions. And so effectively, we have no exemptions that are available, and everybody is forced to succumb to the vaccine measures. So it's just gotten to the point where I've had too many families that I've been serving over the years that are coming to me and saying, what do we do, doc? We'd love to be able to homeschool. We would love that. Our community is filled with homeschoolers. We have a very rich environment, which is fantastic and filled with homeschooling families. But let's face it, it's not for everybody. You can't do it. So they were just struggling. And I'm working with attorneys over the years going, hey, guys, maybe we should bring this suit. And every time we talk about it, every organization, every attorney I've ever spoken with said, it's been decided. You can't go back. The Supreme Court decided this in, 1918 or something crazy. We can't go back and change it, or the environment isn't right, or in California, it's a losing cause, or there's not enough money to get us through the process, whatever the excuses were. Well, gosh, a year and a half ago, I met Mariah Gondiro and Bob Tyler at Advocates for Faith and Freedom. And this is what they do. They stand up against the state of California, against this type of tyranny. And I said, hey, you guys, this is something you should have on your radar. This is a case you might want to entertain. And even then, Mariah was like, oh, no, this isn't something that's going to go anywhere. But I kept whispering in her ear and sending emails every few months. And a year and a half later, she responded. It was going back to school time. And Mariah said, you know what? Time is now. Families are being turned away right now as we speak because of their convictions. They're being forced to undergo these medical procedures that they have no interest in undergoing, and they're being forced. And so she finally got on board. And so we got to the point where, okay, now we need the money, and now we need the families that have been injured that we can actually represent. And we're at that point. We've gotten there, Stan. We've got families that are ready to be plaintiffs. We've got a little bit of a kickstart to the financial side of things, and we are ready to file. And I made that announcement, I think it was about 5 weeks ago now that first announcement was made. And wow, it was lighting a powder keg is what it was.
Yeah.
Since that date, we've heard from many organizations around the country that have been trying to accomplish the same thing. They feel that they are on the verge of doing the same thing. ICANN with Del Bigtree and their attorney, Aaron Seary, have been working on this. Advocates for Faith and Freedom, Christina Hildebrand and her attorneys have been working on this.
Awesome.
PERT, which is Protection of the Educational Rights of Kids, another organization that's been working on this. And so I started hearing from all of these organizations saying, hey, we are trying to accomplish the very same thing that you are. Can we work together? Are we going to work together? And so in the last 5 weeks, as much excitement as there was about that original announcement, everything has kind of gone because we're waiting on attorneys. And, it's like, hey, we got to schedule a phone meeting. You got to talk to this organization. You got to talk to that attorney. Let's talk to this firm. Let's get this firm. And so that's what the last several weeks has been. It's been just this trying to get everybody who has a passion for what we're trying to accomplish here to get on the same page and determine what is going to be the most appropriate course of action. Because right now there are sort of two schools of thought. Do we put all of our eggs in one basket, create one case that we push through the system as hard as we can? Or do we create as many cases as possible, hoping that 1 out of 5 or 6 might make it to the Supreme Court? So I'm letting the attorneys figure that out. This is all legal strategy that goes beyond me. You got to figure out how to get through the first court system, then the second one, and the appeals, and then the third level. And I mean, this is stuff that just is, it's for them to decide. So at this point in time, what we're really doing is still garnering enthusiasm, of course, because we need everybody to be excited about this and continue to spread the word, but we also still need financial support. And so there is an appeal going out today through this conversation I'm having with you for that. So right now, the best way to donate is through the Advocates for Faith and Freedom website, which is advocates-freedom.com, faith-freedom.com, and donate directly to the SB 277 cause, which you can see linked there. But boy, it's time. It is actually time. All of these naysayers for years and years saying it's not going to happen, it can't happen, it won't happen. Mariah and Bob are on board, and they want to take this all the way as far as it will go. And it's time for families and everybody that's excited about this to get on board. And thank you for bringing it to the forefront today, Stan. So what else do you want to know?
I think it's really important, right? Because recently, this past summer, we saw something similar to this happen in Mississippi. Are you familiar with what happened there? Could you share with our audience about that, if you don't mind?
Sure. Well, I follow, and you all should as well, the National Vaccine Information Center, NVIC.org, and I saw their announcement on a Monday morning that said Mississippi won this case, and it was, ta-da, there we go. There we go. And as soon as I saw that, and this was in, I want to say early August, but it was set for July 1st. Kids going back to school this year, we're going to have their religious exemptions reinstated. And as soon as that case, it's what pushed it over the board. I sent the email to Mariah and I said, hey, look what's happening in Mississippi. And that was when she got back to me and said, yes, now is the time, especially as we're just approaching that back to school time. So yeah, that was the huge impetus that we needed here in California to get it happening. Absolutely.
It's such an interesting time, and our audience, just so you're aware, Dr. Donahoe, is like blended, right? There are some people who have been with this movement and with this cause for decades, and there's some people who have been this for the last 3.5 years, right? Like, and it's an interesting diversity that I believe is why we've made so much headway, in my opinion, more in the last 3 years than maybe we've had for your career, to some degree. And maybe why this opportunity is really presenting itself in the way that it is. But I have families that come in now, how they don't know they've no contact with who I have been, who I am. And then some are coming in fully masked with their whole family. And one of the first conversations they have is about vaccines. And it's like, whoa, like it messes with my mind a little bit, because so many people are like all or nothing, right? And then I'm having this conversation through this other thing, right? That is about that health freedom of that child. And it's about, wait, I heard that my kids can't go to school. And we're like, no, like actually, no. Like the mantra for many of us is like, yeah, homeschool or move, because of the way things are in Southern Cal or in California. And it's such it's a hopeful opportunity that I'm very grateful that many of you are taking on, like literally on your back, because I believe it's I think it's an uphill. I think oftentimes, just in the wake of how things have been in California, like it seems daunting and maybe impossible, but I think we're primed for it. And I feel like I'd love for you to share maybe about that, like the opportunity that presents itself because of where we are today. Yes, the broadness of what seems like a very powerful legal front, and then also just the justification, and then also being juxtaposed with Mississippi.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what your perspectives are on that.
Well, here's the elephant in the room that we haven't mentioned yet. We are in a post-COVID era, and it was COVID that shattered everybody's illusions of the vaccine theory and vaccine health care, when it became plainly apparent that, first of all, this was never the COVID shot, and it was never a vaccine. It was improperly labeled as such. But not only that, it went on to not work as it was advertised to do. Hey, you guys get the shot, it will stop here. You not only will you not get sick, but nobody else around you will, were the promises. And it all fell. It was all nothing but smoke and mirrors, you guys. It was horrible. And when you lie to people like that, when you lie to consumers, when you lie to people who are involved in healthcare, you are going to have a very difficult time getting that credibility back. And so what's been very interesting is that, of course, you and I both work in a holistic environment. We invite those types of families to the practice, and sometimes we don't even have to do much teaching. They're already very well grounded in that philosophy, that culture, if you will, when they come. But then there are others. And so it's interesting, as I have over the years, we go through our patient intake form, and at the end of every one of my pediatric forms is the vaccine subject. Where's your kid on the vaccines? Have they had them? Have they not? Do you have questions? And so I have this conversation every single day, multiple times a day. It's been taking place for years and years. How many thousands of times have I had this conversation, Doc, right? So prior to COVID, I had about 20% of the families that would come in and say, yeah, we're looking at doing something that's different than the established schedule. 80% of families that I treated, even in this environment, were following the schedule. It was just what we did, right? But 20% were like, maybe there's something to considering delaying or skipping some of those shots. I'm not sure about those, So 20% of the families or so that I treated were thinking differently. I'll tell you, since COVID, those numbers have exactly flip-flopped. I am now dealing with 80% of families, whether they know anything about me when they walk in the door or not, who are saying, we need to know more before we do anything. And only 20%, maybe even less right now, honestly, are, yeah, my kid's on schedule. It is mind blowing to me how much it has changed. And honestly, it is the biggest blessing we could have asked for, how the CDC and the World Health Organization screwed everything up. Because here we are, be able to pick up the pieces and actually put people on the right path. Stop listening to this garbage. They are clearly lying to you. They will not stop lying to you. So you've got to start looking for other sources of information. Here we are, guys.
I love it. It's crazy. I would say our numbers were similar, and we used to have like a very litmus test question, which like, hey, did you want more information? And if people checked no, then we just didn't touch it until it came to us. And now people check no because they already know. And you're like, whoa, like okay, cool. I don't need a vaccine workshop anymore. That's cool. And I'm starting to realize that maybe I do, because there are still some
it's
people.
Still our most requested one, boy. I do at least 2 or 3 a year, and it still
That's
is
awesome.
The most requested and most highly attended.
So I appreciate that, because I think it's giving us a really good pulse on what it is that the community actually wants and needs. I think it's important to recognize, like, in this state, it's been very insidious. It's been very constant. And like you were sharing, like, we could go back to, I think it was AB 2109. We can, like, there's so many laws that have been put in place, where in 2015, SB 277 removed our it's hard to say it this way. I say it, I've said it this way, and I don't like saying it, but it's so front and center and obvious now. We did whatever we could as a state to remove parents from being able to parent for their children. And with SB 276, we removed the doctor's ability to doctor. And then all of a sudden, our kids' decisions for this one particular intervention was based upon the state. And we could go into all of the back end, investigations that they put on many of those who are writing exemptions. That kind of limits their flexibility to even get to that 5 quota. But we don't have to do that necessarily now. I'm curious if you could chime in on, because this seems like turning that Titanic, right? It seems like it's been moving in this direction. Their goal is 100% compliance across the state. We look at all the numbers with FC 277 and FC 276. It is the most tiny demographic of families like that actually resist. And now, like you're saying, it's exponentially grown because of COVID. Yet at the same time, it still feels like we're turning the Titanic. Why do you think the time is now in particular?
Well, you're right in that, gosh, the state of California is the Titanic. We're sinking. It's absolutely sinking. And it's because of the leadership. And in California, there has been a uniparty for the last 20 years. Yep. It's unbelievable that there are no other voices in government. The Republican Party, the conservative voice, just doesn't exist. And so in California, it's a steamroller. Whatever they want is going to happen. And they seem to be determined, as you said, to separate families, to reduce parental rights, and then to implement wherever they can Big Pharma's agenda. I mean, how much money stands to be made by forced vaccinating every child in this state? It's incredible. And of course, the way they read SB 277, we're going to continue to add to the list, and whatever we add to the list, you need to do. And it's unbelievable. They did try to add the COVID shot to that list. Unfortunately, California decided not to force that. But my gosh, it's an open-ended list that they can continue to add to and continue to just cha-ching, pull the lever. And nobody is standing up for these children. And that's the problem, is that this state is a steamroller. So what do we do about that? Well, number one, guys, don't leave California, please. I have had so many families that have up and gone, Tennessee, Idaho, Texas. wonderful places, fantastic. I understand that, but God, we live in the best place in this country. The weather is amazing, even here where I live in the desert. We're so blessed to be in the mountains, the desert, the beach, of all places, the most beautiful coastline in the entire country. You guys, you got to stay and you got to fight. You cannot just roll over. And so that's what we were determined to do years ago. I am not going to leave my home state of California. I grew up going to the beach, surfing, going to the mountains, snowboarding, going to the desert, riding motorcycles, which is how I got myself in a little bit of trouble. But lifetime of incredible experiences that we have here in California. So don't leave. Keep your families here and pour into your community. Get behind movements like this and fight. Make your voice known. Everybody knows that a cell phone and a keyboard that goes with it is a voice, and there's power to that now. And when you just shut up your voice and move away, that's one less person that we've got pushing this Titanic to get it where we want it to go. So my first appeal is don't leave California. Stay and fight and become vocal. If you can't take action on that keyboard, then write us a check at the very least. You know, there are doers and there are financial supporters. I'm ready to be your doer, but we need that support. And as long as we keep pushing, even the Titanic can turn, you know. So it's just a matter of you have got to keep fighting. The moment that we just say, that's it, then hey, we might as well move out of the country. Forget California, because every state in the nation is going to follow California. And that's what I'm trying to tell families. You can't just move away from this. If you move into another state and California gets away with it, the other states are soon going to follow. So we've got to stay here. We've got to fight. We've got to keep pushing. That's what we're doing.
I really appreciate you sharing that, because we, for a lot of years, it's like a business suicidal decision to like educate people, you know, because it is a calculable business like loss the more people are educated and the more people move, right? And it's at the same time we stay, I'm sure you guys do, stay a little bit connected with a lot of our old patients who have moved, and I hear very frequently how much they miss like just being here, right? And people think it's like, oh yeah, the Sunshine Tax. It is literally an ecosystem epigenetic experience to be in California that largely is so life-giving that I don't think that's replicable in other states. We could call that the Sunshine Tax. We could call that's why, you know, the powers that be took over this state to some degree. But if you think this is like really a land war, which it is, like, then why leave? Why leave, right? Because I'm pledged to stay. My family's pledged to stay. So many in our practice are pledged to stay. And I would say, taking it further to what you just said, if you are staying, you have to be in the arena. You have to be on the field with us in the fray, sometimes taking blows, sometimes, you know, being that kind of voice, and sometimes just being a part of the movement and funding and being a part of that, you know, supplying the resources in some form or fashion. Because this, like you said, I think a lot of other states are waking up and they won't follow California to some degree, right? I'm starting to believe that. But what I also hear from many of the people in those states is that when they get there, there aren't a lot of active, like there's not a lot of active advocacy like there is here, because there is no apparent opposition. And so I'm encouraging these people like, well, you better be in the arena proactively building, you know, like building relationships, drafting legislation that is pro-Constitution, that is pro-America, that is pro-human freedom, and like especially for our kids. Because if you're not, then especially, it's only a matter of time. The World Economic Forum people, the globalists, all these people who have captured even our local boards, we have to stay in the fight. And if you're in California, yes, go surf. Yes, go snowboard. Yes, go dirt bike. Yes, go to the desert. Go everywhere you need to remember what life is about, but also remember that protecting and fighting for that life is really, really, really what's at stake right now. I really, really appreciate you sharing that, Dr. Donahoe.
Yeah.
So how would you say we best support you?
Well, the most important thing right now is financially. As I said, we've got the families that are going to be represented. And at this point, all we need is the money to make sure that it keeps driving forward. To date, the organization has raised over $5,000. The number of need is over $300,000.
Okay.
So in order to get this thing all the way through the Supreme Court, we're going to need a whole lot more money. I'm doing my part, and my community is doing my part. And the good news is that, gosh, even people in other states, as you said, the video that we originally shot went viral, and we are getting support from around the country, which is amazing. And I will say that the law firm did get a whole slew of first-time donations. And I mean, gosh, guys, that is fantastic. They were mostly small dollar donations. You know what that tells me? The families that I serve sent 15 or 20 bucks or maybe 50 bucks. And that is incredible, because that's a lot for a family these days. It really is. At the same time, I'm going to urge those families, do that same $15 or $20 next month too. If you can get on a recurring donation and it's just that, 10 or 15 bucks, replace your Starbucks, 1-2 coffees a month. It would be fantastic, because this is going to be a very long journey, you guys. Supreme Court doesn't get to hear cases right away. They have to graduate through different levels of the court system in California. So it's going to be a very lengthy process. I wish I could say that by next year, your kids will be able to get into school with a religious exemption. God, I pray that that's the case. If we win our very first case, then that may be the situation. But if we lose the first one and we have to go through appeal after appeal after appeal, this can take years. And so the best way to be supportive is to actually throw the money into the hat and support the attorneys who are doing this work. Understand that this organization, Advocates for Faith and Freedom, they're a nonprofit organization. They do this, they're going to file this suit, and they're working on so many more surrounding parental rights here in California. It's a fantastic organization, guys. So I 100% support everything that they do. But they have given us the opportunity to donate directly to this one and only cause. So on their website, you can say, this is, instead of a general fund donation, I want to give my 50 bucks, 100 bucks, 500 bucks to this fight against SB 277. And so that's the most important thing that we can do. Number two, share this information. Take this podcast, send it out to people once it's been published and you've had a chance to hear it. Send the video updates that I'm going to be continuing to share. Send those out, and become a blogger yourself. Become an informer yourself. Spread this message, even if it's only to your friends and family. Bring up the subject and start talking about these kinds of things. So many people have no idea, as you say, that they believe it's either get the shots or homeschool. There are a lot of ways that we have creatively found to get around that. So even right now, as we face the California state laws the way they are, we have families that are successfully schooling their children without having to comply. And there are ways to do this, but you've got to have that passion, that drive, that desire to find out those ways, right? So you got to talk to the right people, the right schools, the right administrators, the right principals, find the right organizations, the right homeschooling pods, the right groups of families that are working together. There's lots of ways, guys, but you have to be inclined to look for it, right? So that's another way to do it, is to look for ways to educate your kids and get it done working within the system, but around the system at the same time. And then, another one is support your local chiropractors. It's these doctors who think outside of the box, guys. Your local pediatricians, sadly in California, and I can only speak for California, pediatricians now don't get to say anything. And again, I've worked with many pediatricians who have supported families in their choices for many years, and we work side by side with these families. And now every pediatrician in the state of California has their orders. And when a family says, what do you think about vaccines, doc? When should I begin the schedule, doc? Which ones are important, doc? Is there any that I could skip? Your pediatrician has one answer only.
Yep.
And it's not from their heart. It's not from their education. It's not from their experience as a doctor. It's from the state of California.
Mm-hmm.
And that answer is, here's what the CDC says, guys, and this is what I say too.
Yep.
And that is disgusting, because that is not doctoring. And so you got to stop going to doctors who don't doctor you and your family. So look for someone like myself, look for someone like Dr. Hom, who listens to your needs, meets you where you're at, supports your family and what they actually need and desire. It's just a sad state of affairs when pediatricians are no longer your doctor. Instead, this California state legislature is making your doctoring decisions. It's horrible. So there's lots of ways that we can help. Lots of ways, right?
Most people don't know the Latin root of doctor is docere, which means to teach.
Teach.
And I usually joke in my practice. It's like, um, this doesn't like I usually joke like, and this is when I leverage shame and guilt, and this is when I try to manipulate you into. It's like a moment where parents are like, "This is crazy," because that's what we experience, and you're just saying it out loud as if it's a joke. I'm like, yeah, because it kind of is that you're not being doctored by a person. You are being doctored by somebody who's dehumanized themselves and has just abdicated everything to the state, which is completely bought and sold down the river with pharma. And when the number one question I get often is, do you know any good pediatricians? And I'm like, first question is, why do you need one? And most people are like, I thought I needed one. And it's like, wow, like, we could handle almost everything here. Like, got a scale and a tape measure, like we got that, like that's one part, we don't do the other thing that you don't want. And so, but then we also have this wildly, intimate understanding of the wisdom of the body and how the beautiful development of the human nervous system is highly immaculate and orchestrated by, this amazing intelligence.
How constipation doesn't require Miralax, maybe an adjustment. And it's like, you guys, it's just such a different take on healthcare in general, so you got to stop looking to the medicine for every challenge that the body endures. I mean, when we can deliver an adjustment and solve growing pains in one visit, and this kid's been miserable over weeks, parents don't know what to do, and we get that knee adjusted and off the kid goes running. I mean, you're working with the wrong physicians, guys. You need to find doctors who actually understand the body, how it works, why it works the way it works that way, what gets in the way of it working the way that it should. How do we remove those roadblocks and just allow innate intelligence to flourish? You need people on your team like that. And so, yes, work more and more with outstanding alternative-minded physicians like we are.
And you mentioned that some of us, one of the ways that people can get involved is education, right? They could become, like you said, like they could recognize the power of their own personal platform or the power of just having a conversation with somebody. And I want to tell a quick story that I'm sure you have a similar experience because you've been in the community long enough, where we have a patient who's expecting and we have a semi-open, environment. We're not a fully open concept where everybody's in the same room, but you can hear certain conversations. And then one day she's like, wait a minute, I think that person works in HR where I work. And it was like this moment, right? Where she's like, I don't feel like I can communicate the things that I might need. Cause literally the appointment before, I said, you tell me anything. I will write any letter to justify any amount of time off or disability that you might need, because I believe we could clinically validate that from a nervous system perspective, especially in the wake of what we've been through, right? And knowing this family, and I was very forward with that. And then she had this moment where she's like, I want to be in a private room. We're like, super, that's totally fine. Feel free to always request that. And then in one of those further appointments, she had this thought in the back of her mind. She's like, I just have to say this. Is the fact that she's here, does she probably believe what you believe too? I was like, yeah. And I said, so this is a learning point, right? This doesn't mean that you have to go in and you have a 1,000%, teammate and things like that. But we are at a state of the world, right, where two people could have the same belief about where the state is going and the different perspectives that parents aren't being cared for, moms aren't being cared for, kids aren't being cared for. We have the same perspectives, but we're too afraid socially to be stigmatized because it goes so far against the grain that we don't say something. So what Dr. Donahoe is saying is like, sometimes it's just recognizing that we are at that point in history where the envelopment of our children and those next generations is continuing ad nauseum and insidiously and pervasively, unless we actually recognize the gravity of this moment. And it doesn't mean that you need 50,000 followers on Instagram. It doesn't mean that you need 1 million people on your email account. It doesn't mean that you have to have a Substack that everybody shares. It means that you just have to recognize that this is the moment that we actually take our families and our future family trees and the health freedom, medical freedom of them very seriously, and quit letting the state, but especially quit letting these spaces between you and sometimes the closest people in your family from having that conversation. I think you sharing that is one of the most important pieces that most people could take on tomorrow.
But you have to get that fear out of the way. It's held people back for too long, and that's why we've seen the rise of this, what you want to call woke culture. You have to be able to say, no, there is black and white. There is not this gray in the middle. It's you guys, it's time to stand up for what is right and not be afraid to take a position and to defend that position. And that's what we've been doing this entire time. You know, I mean, believe me, you are present online on your Instagram account. I'm sure you put things up there that have had you warned, even probably, temporarily taking your account away. That's happened to us. And so you have to tread this line of, what can I say? What can I say? What can I say? I'm done with that. Honestly, it's, what do I need to say? I don't care what I can and can't say anymore. I need to say what I need to say, and that is truth.
Yep.
And I am going to speak truth. I hate to bag on the pediatricians again, but when the American Medical Association lands in a position where they are not going to say that your baby is a boy or a girl, I'm sorry, we have a problem with medicine when you can't follow the freaking DNA blueprint that says boy, girl. Okay? When you're listening to an organization that is having that challenge in identifying science and basic nature, we have a huge problem. And so it's time to stop playing these games. I am not going to entertain such things. We have males and we have females in my practice. We don't have anything in between. As a full-grown adult, you can live your life any way that you want to, but we are talking about children here, and my job is to protect children, and I will not allow that in my practice. You are a boy or you are a girl, and I will stand firm on that, because you guys, it is no other way. I'm sorry for people whose feelings are hurt. My goodness, you may live your life any way that you want, but the fantasy around you has to come to an end. And we have got to speak up to protect these children on this subject and so many others. It's time to stop acquiescing to the pressure, to the fear of people saying, we're going to make your business suffer, or we're going to make sure that you are exposed for what you are, or whatever. No. You speak truth, you stand tall, you be proud, know that the message comes from above, and all I'm doing is repeating it. And it is truth. And you got to have courage. That's what it takes these days, guys. So if I can encourage anybody at least a little bit, that's what it takes. You've got to be able to take that position and be firm in your voice.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Donahoe. We've approached the subject of gender, I want to say, as an aside on, this will be the 4th interview out of 215 or something like that. We have to have an interview that specifically navigates that conversation, largely because if you talk to Andy Kaufman says, because it was just this aside, very last little subject, which this guy is one of the experts on terrain theory. He's one of the guys that is like showing the paucity of research on viral actually isolation. And then this small conversation about transhumanism, about the way that the mRNA and a lot of the different ways that, it's changing our DNA. And he just goes off on this, like, but that's the whole point of the trans movement. And I was like, what? And he goes, to end humanity. It was so so clear as day. And it was a moment for me where I was like, all that stuff that gets in the conversation, that the movement says we have to talk about this because we need to. I understand the way that these kind of gray areas are, and in the end, if the end, like when I talked to Nicole Pearson, it was like, if the end of that movement is my daughter is swimming against a dude, then I'm done with that. I'm done with that, right? If at the end is like that, it's the end of humanity. It's like, oh, whoa, that's crazy. It is a darkness that I could not contemplate before 2020. And
These little
now,
teeny tiny steps that are going
yeah.
in that direction. Yeah.
So I appreciate you bringing that up because I want people to know that I don't care what you um, feel like you have to say. What I care is that people are alive today knowing that when they put their head on their pillow, that they feel like they've expressed a level of their truth and authenticity that lets them sleep better at night, knowing that they protected their kids and the next generation. I appreciate you also sharing the distinction, right? The distinction. There are many people in the LGBT plus movement that are totally against brainwashing children, totally against the fact that they are creating this movement, like you're sharing, that pediatricians are learning from their trade association and they are being indoctrinated in this new belief system that essentially they can't identify a child as a boy or a girl. It is gnarly to think that that in itself is a psychological aberration that most people do not get because they're getting too caught up in the grays and those kind of conversations that they feel that if they aren't having them, they aren't inclusive, which cannot be the whole picture, right? So this is a slight aside, right? I'm sorry if we got a little bit off tangent because I want to bring it back to the first thing that you recommended, Dr. Donahoe, which was donating. I have been in this movement for a long time, and I have watched this movement go from what we used to do, which is doctor, four walls of our office, one-on-one, knee to knee, heart to heart conversations, and then, maybe take it to the Capitol, maybe host different workshops, maybe have this kind of very linear way to educate people, and it's highly effective. And then I believe the blessing of 2015 was when we saw the alternative media, we saw Highwire, we saw a lot of these different voices come up. We saw Bobby Kennedy really get amplified into a bigger conversation, and the legal battle is so much more broad than it ever has been. So when your video goes viral, it's great to share. It's really important. It's great to continue that conversation and post more. But in the end, these lawsuits need finances. They need money to pay these lawyers to do the bidding, which in many respects, like in Mississippi, it's like, well, maybe it's as easy now because we've had 3.5 years of destroying the Bill of Rights, of taking that First Amendment and just brushing it aside. And it's so obvious now, but you have to get the lawyers there. You have to get the lawyers in the courtroom, actually building a case, actually, in a in a nonprofit organization. It needs to be funded by donors. And I'd love for you to give one last call to action for that.
Yeah, so one more time, the website is faith-freedom.com, and you follow the donation link at the top of their page, and then you can choose specifically to donate to the SB 277 cause. And as I said, any dollar amount is fantastic, but the biggest key will be if you can just sign up as a recurring donor. So keep that in mind. You can drop $100 today, but if you could drop $10 every month for the next 2 years, that's $240 towards the cause. So think about that. It's just, that is what we need, guys, as well as just spreading the message. So we appreciate it so much. And understand, you guys, I got into this 2015. My children were already beyond the grade checkpoints for SB 277. I didn't get into this even 9 years ago for my kids. I got into this for the children in my practice, this entire community I serve, my future grandchildren at that time. Now I've got 2, and the ones that are yet to come. You guys, I mean, we are in this fight not for our own children necessarily, but for the children of the state of California. And that means a lot, guys, a lot of kids that are depending on this. So even if you feel like, well, I'm not in the game, I don't have any kids in the school, so I don't have any skin in the game. Well, you need to support the rest of these kids. So if you think like we do, you're aligned with us, then just please help out a little bit with a recurring donation or one large chunk if you can. But that's going to be the trick, is just to make sure that we've got the finances to push this thing all the way through.
And so the organization is Advocates for Faith and Freedom. Their website is incredibly, it's really good. I like it.
Yeah.
It was easy for me to find. It's easy for me to navigate. There's a whole questionnaire on this entire subject. The ability to donate, like that page is very simple to navigate. And you can, like Dr. Donahoe said, you can choose when you hit donate online, you can choose specifically to donate to this specific campaign. You can choose an amount, you can choose a frequency as far as recurring. Highly recommend doing that, because it's that recurring donation that keeps the movement and the momentum going. And kind of one last thing that I feel is important with regard to advocacy in general. I feel like there is this rumbling, and I feel like you are evidence of that, right? Dr. Donahoe's, if you did not catch all those organizations that Dr. Donahoe shared at the beginning, if you don't know National Vaccine Information Center and you are in this movement in a more modern way, then you don't recognize that for decades this movement has been riding on some of these people who have been so committed, who no longer have any kids in the, on the chopping block, in school, navigating this at all. And we need people in our generation to take the baton. And actually, it's not like you're letting go of the torch. It's like you just want people running with you, right? You just want people running with you. And it's a real opportunity that I believe you've hit so many subjects that are going to really strike at the heartstrings of our listeners, because there are people who've been in this movement for so long that are so devoted, and it is one of the more inspiring things that I've ever done in my career. The last 3 years was an amplification of that. But what I've seen since the last 3 years is a lot of people start to kind of pull back and start to get burnt out and start to kind of move in a different direction. And I think it's because maybe they've found their solution, but nothing in the movement for freedom is isolated, right? You can be on your 10 acres somewhere. You can be on your 140 acres. You could be completely off grid, but the darkness is literally pervasive. And at some point they're finding their way, whether it's chemtrails, whether it's EMFs, whether it's a FEMA alert, whether it's groundwater, whether it's all sorts of ways that they're trying to kind of envelop everybody. The only way out of that is if we come together, and if we really, really find solidarity, and we really, really cohesively synergize in this movement. And I believe this to be one of the more inspiring ones that I've seen in a long time, because I believe California, in the very near future, I don't believe it's going to be beyond our lifetimes. I believe it's going to be in the very near future that we become the beacon for human freedom in a way that I believe no other state can do it, because most people don't know the darkness that exists, that we see every day coming after our kids. And I think you have been one of those warriors and one of those beacons for me holistically, whether it's in the weeds with the multiple ways that you've been, but especially for me as a chiropractor. Thank you for your service to our profession, and thank you for your service through chiropractic to your community, because we need more young ones like you, because if we don't, we know what that outcome is going to be. So thank you very much, Dr. Donahoe.
Thank you, Doc. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I appreciate your passion on this and so many other subjects. You're doing what I just recommended, spreading the word on so many important subjects. So thank you for the hard work that you put forth every day. We appreciate it.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Future Generations podcast. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as more ways to inspire a brighter future for you and your family, visit us at thefuturegen.com. That's all available exclusively on thefuturegen.com.